like to know why you can never get to the end of a rainbow.
The worst disaster in Iowa.
What are your top 3 movies that involve weather?
Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome into Weathered Questions, the podcast where we answer the meteorology questions on your radar. My name is Jan Kaj, and I am joined by my co-host, Kai O'Mara. We are both have been broadcast meteorologists here for some time, have now left the world, and we're still doing weather and science-related things, but just not on TV anymore. And this podcast lets us still get to geek out over weather with all of you. If you're new around here, thanks for joining. If you're not, thanks for sticking around. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate your feedback and your questions, especially if you want to join in on the conversation. You can email those questions to weatheredquestions, name of the podcast, weatheredquestions@gmail.com. Guy, let's kick it off with a question.
Yeah, you got it, Jan. Absolutely. It's been quite a roller coaster ride here across the Midwest. And I'll tell you, even just in the state of Iowa over the past 8 to 9 days, because we've got plenty of listeners in Iowa. You and I are based in Iowa. A big shout out, by the way, to Brian Marshall over there at Rock 108. We had a great discussion on our air about weathered questions, and he's a big fan of the program. We appreciate your support, Brian. But we went, Jan, from record highs to grass fires starting, to substantial snow in the state, even in excess of a foot in spots, all in a span of 5 days. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, the referees that might be listening may go, false start on nature.
Yep.
Penalty is 2 weeks. Repeat the play. So the big question, Jan, is why do we generally see a period of false spring, which is a few weeks that are unseasonably warm, and then we go right back into winter weather? This is a question from a listener in Urbandale.
Yeah, so great question. And I think a lot of us maybe just get excited, with that false start, right? You're excited to start the play. You're excited to get into spring. And so you kind of put a lot of stock in that warmer weather and think we're done. We're done with snow. We're putting it behind us. But this happens in any season, any time of year where we have this variability, right? Those ups and downs. And what it really comes down to is our jet stream and the variability within it. Those, you might have heard us talk about troughs and ridges, basically the ups and downs of the jet stream, and things that bring us different kinds of weather at different points of the year. A couple episodes back talked about the polar vortex, a similar kind of thing where you've got ups and downs, and it just brings in different types of weather. And so that's really all that's happening here is normal variability in our weather seasonally and throughout. It's just we tend to latch on to that early spring warm up because we just really want it to warm up. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, we really do. And the warm ups and the cool downs, even though in our simple world, a lot of times, especially broadcasters, just refer to these as warm fronts and cold fronts. Mm-hmm. What's actually going on above our head is a series of what we call waves. And it's literally as if you had a swimming pool that's fully calm and you start a wave on one part of the pool, and that wave goes in its typical S shape all the way across the pool. And what happens at the leading edge of the wave, it warms up. That's when literally the atmosphere is a little bit thicker. And thicker air is typically, from top to bottom, typically warmer. So that's when you get those days in the 60s and 70s to come through for a day or two. Usually it's a gusty south wind, and then the center of the wave hits, and then the back end of the wave hits. And that's when things start to get much colder. Within all that, you've got upward and downward motion, which gives us the storms or the precipitation or the snow. But it's that up-down motion that tends to do that. And it's also, Jan, one of the reasons why spring is one of our windiest times of year in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I think it was probably the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I grew up in our schooling system, I was always taught that fall was the windiest time of year. Always.
I don't know if I was necessarily taught that, but I feel like you always see like pictures of leaves with like the little like swirly, soupy winds. And so like you naturally, kind of grow up thinking that. I think that's fair.
In reality, it's actually April.
Yeah.
And that's why so many wild things can happen in April. We can have blizzards in April. we can have tornado outbreaks in April.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can have it within a few days. And what that means is when you have those waves that you just talked about going up and down and up and down and up and down, they become higher. So we call those high amplitude waves that have taller ceilings and lower bottoms. So the highs really feel beautiful, like t-shirt and shorts, high temperatures. And then the back end of the wave is just rude. That's the best way to put it. Just rude.
It's true.
50-degree drop can be
Yeah.
expected sometimes. So yeah, that's typically why that kind of stuff works. But it does get us into our windier time of year. So February into March, you're going to start, looking at that quite a bit more, I think. And certainly as we get to the outdoor soccer season, we battle wind weekly as soccer players and officials and coaches. So that's coming. That's definitely coming. No question.
And maybe that's also part of why we put so much stock into that false spring, air quotes around false spring, right? It is because it happens around this time, right? March, February, early March timeframe, where you get that brief warm up and it's not quite windy yet. And so it's great. You can get outside and enjoy it. And especially on a winter like we've had where there's so little snow, that it warms up even a little bit more and you can actually go for a bike ride and do those outdoor things in February that maybe you couldn't otherwise if it was just sloshy and slushy. But then once it gets warm into later March and April, that's when the wind picks up. And so it's harder to enjoy it as much. And so we put so much, emphasis on that early season warm up. But it does happen on the flip side too, right? In the fall,
Yeah.
we get where we go dive down, we get frost. It's like, oh, yep, we're in the thick of it. We're in winter now. And then we get 60, 70-degree days in November and December. That happens too. It's just normal seasonal variability.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing about it is we want to make sure that now in the winter, going into winter, it's not as big of a deal, but in the spring, it can be. If we get 3 or 4 days, 50s and 60s, that give us a nice break, typically the vegetation will say, okay, I'm not going to come out yet. But in 2012 was a great example. March of 2012 was like summer hit for 2 weeks and it started faking out the trees. And then we had a
have a
freeze
couple
in April.
bulbs starting to come up over the last couple of days. So
And
some
then
of the vegetation did.
You knew it was going to be bad when we had that next freeze because we're not out of freeze season. And then there were some folks that had some agricultural damage because of that big warm up. So I don't think the one we just had was enough to do something like that, but
especially here, right. In Iowa. But if you're talking, we've heard all of those different stories about places like Florida where you get things starting to bud, you get, your orange blossoms, and then you get a late season cold snap that is unseasonal for Florida. And then you have sky high orange prices later on because the orange crop suffered. And so that does happen, right? But to your point, Kai, something where it was just a couple days like we had here over February in the Midwest shouldn't be too detrimental for us.
No, I wouldn't think so.
All right. Well, that gets us into talking a lot about wind and what we have to quote unquote look forward to, we'll say, for spring here across the U.S. We're talking wind turbines. And we got this question from a West Des Moines listener asking, why are the wind turbines not on during the windiest days? That they seem to think that would be a great time to capture that energy. Why are they not on?
Well, you can have too much of a good thing. You really can. And there's a couple different reasons for that. First off, it's the safety of the wind turbine itself, because those blades, even though you're driving on the interstate and you're looking, if you actually do the math on that, those blades are about a football field long, and they're doing a full revolution in a few seconds. And if you do some math and you time that out, you will realize that these turbine blades are easily going faster than 100 miles an hour, just in a general breeze. And so what happens is brakes will kick on so that the blades don't go too fast during those times of windy weather. And for us, the windiest days on the ground, I can promise you it's much stronger at the top of those pedestals too, because there's no friction up there. There's no tree cover preventing the wind from hitting it. So those do have, I believe, typically some anemometers installed at the top. And so they've got an idea of when to shut those things off. Most of that, I believe, is an automated process as well. But you'll see the wind turbines kind of turning into the wind. Now, I'm not, in the wind expert arena, but I want to say that maybe a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind is about perfect to get those things going. And they'll just go right into the wind and they'll get you some nice, perfect generation. But once you start getting higher and higher, especially once I believe the ceiling is 50 or 55, and then they turn off. Because you don't want, if you've ever seen a runaway,
55, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
If you've ever seen a runaway wind turbine, it is scary. It will come apart. And there are YouTube clips out there that you can see. And once a blade comes off, the whole thing just starts shredding itself. And then you got yourself a huge disaster. So that's probably
it's off balance and it can't.
Oh yeah.
It can't do what it's supposed to do, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's typically why that's the case. But yeah, they run the brakes only because of the safety feature to keep that thing, the integrity together physically. And then otherwise, those things are typically spinning. Even if it's calm near the ground, they may still be spinning up there because, in some of these cases, you're several hundred feet high. And that makes a difference.
The middle part where that like motor is of a wind turbine is anywhere from 400, 500 feet up. That's going to be 100 to 150 meters. And you have to think that's the middle, right? The blade goes up just about, almost not quite as high, but 600 feet or more. And if you think about just maybe you've never been on top of a mountain, but just think about what your intuition tells you. The higher you go up into the atmosphere, probably the windier it's going to get. And there is actual factual truth to that. And there's a reason for that. As Kai noted, there's less friction. There's less stuff for that wind to run into and slow down. So to Kai's point, right, it could be a calmer day, 5 miles an hour, light and variable on the ground, but those wind turbines are still going because there is activity happening overhead in the atmosphere that energy can still get captured. And so, which is a great day for wind turbines. It is when it's calm. But when it's 40, 50 miles an hour on the ground, it's going to be a lot faster up higher, and that's when you're going to run into problems.
Yep. It also makes sense, Jan, that this question came in from West Des Moines, because if you take Interstate 80 either way out of Des Moines, you're going to hit wind farms. So there's a really good chance some folks out there on I-80 are going to hit that. For those that drive 380 every day in Iowa, you don't really see much of it, actually. It's Interstate 80. And actually, the greatest source of windier days in Iowa are generally central and western Iowa, and not so much eastern Iowa. If you were to break it down just by the terrain of the state, yes, Iowa has a few hills. Not very many, but we do have a few hills. And there are parts of the state that are windier than others. And so that's where these big companies like to put these big old wind farms in there. And that's why sometimes you're watching the semi trucks trying to keep it on the interstate, and yet all the blades are completely silent. And that's just because it's too windy. It's really that simple.
That brings up an interesting point, too, that I'll also kind of take a quick sidebar on. I grew up in north central Iowa. My hometown is Webster City. A lot of people know that. And I mean, along Highway 20, like you noted, Kai, along I-80, there are wind turbines all over. And so that's just like second nature to me as an Iowan and as somebody who grew up with them all around me. But if you're listening from elsewhere in the country, or even just elsewhere in the state that you're not driving by those a lot, it may be a little known fact that Iowa is one of the top percentage states for wind generation, which is, again, you wouldn't think about that. It doesn't seem like it, but it's a flat state. There's a lot of farmland and easy to put those wind turbines up and get, harvest the wind above and still use the ground below. And I just pulled up a quick Wikipedia. Top 5 states according to percentage of generation by wind as of 2020. Iowa's on the top, 57%. And there's also a wind capacity in MW, megawatts, milliwatt, I don't know.
Megawatts.
MWs, megawatts.
Yeah.
We're number 2 there behind Texas. So
nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's good stuff. And that kind of just goes right around with the false spring, because false spring equals wind. And now we've talked a little bit about wind turbines, but now I'm going to throw some stuff at you about the high temperature. for the
Okay.
day, because the sun, as we get later into the winter season and early spring season, that sun is getting higher and higher in the sky. You've probably noticed it now.
Mhm.
We're gaining over 2 minutes of daylight per day right now in the United States. So
Starting to
the
get
seasonal,
really, really
yes,
noticeable, I think.
the transition is on for sure. So the sun is definitely capable of warming, as a lot of us have felt when we lost the snow cover, and now the snow cover is back for many parts of the country. So your trivia question here for today, which will give you a chance to think about here momentarily. Snow-packed ground at this time of year can affect the high temperature by how much? You have three options today. Is it A, 5 degrees, B, 10 degrees, or is it C, 20 degrees? We're going to hear from Tim Palmer, the salsa guy, give you a chance to think about this here in about 30 seconds.
Hi, this is Tim from Salsa Guy Cafe. We've got some exciting new menu items to share. Try our new full breakfast menu at the Blair's Ferry Road location, featuring scratch-made favorites like Crunchberry French Toast. Our best seller, the Alfalfa's Experience Deli Sandwich, is still a must-have, and we have to brag. Our Conquistador Burger was named one of Iowa's top 3 best burgers. Come try one on today.
Salsa Guy Cafe. We're not fast food, but we make great food fast.
Today's trivia question.
Alrighty, so again, for those that are still thinking about the question, or maybe you just caught us here halfway through.
I don't know. I'm thinking about Crunchberry French Toast now.
Yeah. Isn't that just ridiculous?
Oh, that sounds so good.
And Tim, he wouldn't say how many calories were in it, but you know what?
I don't want to know. That ruins
Nobody
it.
wants to know. It's comfort food for a reason.
Exactly.
And actually, he didn't really say this in his ad, but his chicken strips are just killer. I've had those.
Never had anything bad from Tim.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Good guy.
All right, here we go. And you know, the thing that is interesting too is that, you know, Tim and I go back and forth about the weather forecast.
Yeah.
Because trying to figure out how much snow might hit, and we just did that at this last snow event. So trying to help the local guys out when they shoot me a text.
For sure.
So here's your trivia. Snowpack ground this time of year can affect the high temperature by what? 5, 10, or 20 degrees? All right, Jan, we've had enough time to think about it. What's your answer? What do you think?
Also, if you're listening to this not right on release, we are in late February.
Yes.
So, if that
that's
matters.
True.
Just
Good
FYI.
point. Good point.
I can see the answer, but my intuition told me 10 because I know that the sun can make the temperature go up by 10 to 15 degrees, and so I was thinking 10.
It's actually closer to 20.
I know. It's wild.
Actually closer to 20. And the reason why is that the sun angle this time of year, again, we're recording it late February.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about an early October, mid-October type of sun angle. And an inch or two of snow can really hold things down compared to a dry, bare ground. So it's not like, all right, you just melted it all away and it's done, and now we can warm 20 more than what we did yesterday. Not quite, but if you had the same upper level temperatures and the same sun and the same westerly wind, and you had 3 or 4 inches of snow cover, you're probably going to be about 20 degrees colder in the late February through mid-March window. Your answer is correct in a lower sun angle.
Sure.
Yes, in January, it's less pronounced because the sun is so low to begin with.
Yeah.
But in late February and March, it becomes very drastic. And that's why, you know, my neighbors and I joke all the time, like, do we have to shovel this, or is this one just going to shovel itself?
Yeah.
Because the sun's so strong, you know? So this is the time of year we get the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So speaking of that, when we get brand new snow, Jan,
Yeah.
if you don't have sunglasses on and it's sunny, you can get in accidents. I mean, you have glare off the road, you have glare off the grass. So this question came in. Why is snow so bright?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's funny too. With this most recent snow event, it was kind of an overnight snow. And both my husband and I both remarked, like, we're getting ready for bed, and it looked like the windows were just like glowing because it was so bright. And that's partly, you know, light pollution and stuff like that reflecting off the clouds, but it was also then reflecting off of the ground. And so what's going on there? There's something called albedo, and that is essentially white things like fresh new snow have a very high albedo. Dark things like the blackest black thing, like a rock or
Asphalt,
honestly, yeah,
pavement.
asphalt. You wouldn't necessarily think of them as black, but dark tree canopies or grass, things like that, dirt, that has a very low albedo. And what's going on with fresh new snow is that it's very fresh ice crystals, and it's only that, right? It's not been contaminated, and so it has a very high albedo to start with when it's brand new, and as it gets older, a couple things happen. It starts breaking down a little bit, melting or compacting, things like that. It's also getting dust blown in over the top of it in various facets, or, we've all driven by on the side of a road, one of those really yucky snow drifts that all the cars have kicked up mud and stuff onto it. Things like that happen, and that actually changes the albedo of the snow and starts to drop it. And as you're getting that dirt and stuff mixed in, then it's not as reflective. And so that's the basics of it. Is it's fresh new snow. It doesn't have anything contaminating it. It has a very high albedo, and it can reflect a lot of light back. And so it's essentially, like, think of like a mirror or something that you're using to reflect the sun. I've never used one, but like those things you always see in like a movie of somebody like tanning on the beach, right? One of those little like sun, like mirror things that you're trying to get all the sun.
You're
it's
trying
basically
to focus
that.
it. Yeah, exactly.
It's basically that, where it's reflecting all of the sunlight back up, or the moonlight, or whatever time of day it is.
Well, I will tell you, on a full moon night after a fresh snow, it's darn near, it looks like dusk outside. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see, and you can see well. Like, I've seen people do walks in that environment, and you can see them really well on the sidewalk as they're walking. And just having all that there. We did a episode about when we typically see our coldest temperatures in the wintertime, and almost always they come on sunny, snow-covered days.
Yes.
And that's exactly the reason why, is the science you just described. For those wondering about the specific numbers, I believe, I'd have to double check, but I believe that fresh snow reflects about 95% of the sunlight, and older snow can be in that 70 to 80% range. And so it makes a difference. It makes a difference, right? If you all of a sudden are able to crank up the power 20, 25% more, just because you've splashed some mud all over some stuff or made it look a little bit different. When you actually analyze snow cover from the satellite imagery, you can also tell the brighter white stuff is the fresher snow. And then it kind of has this darkened, kind of off-white appearance for stuff that's been, dirtied up or condensed down in some way. And then once it gets to that state, melting, it's very quick. That's a quick process. When all of a sudden you wake up one day, it was a sunny day, a high of 40, and then by the end of the day, your snow cover's gone. So that's a good question.
And if that's still a little abstract, another thing that you can think about that maybe is a little more easy to latch onto, think about something that is not snow. In the middle of summer, on the hottest day, are you going to pick a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt to wear?
Right.
You're going to pick the white one because intuitively that lighter colors mean they're going to absorb less sun and you're going to be not as hot. Same thing is happening with snow, right? White t-shirt versus black t-shirt, white snow versus dark ground. That white is going to reflect more. It's going to absorb less of the sun's energy. Thus, it's colder. And again, you're reflecting more light and it stays colder. All of that plays into the same thing.
Before we go, let's up the ante just one more for all the working parents out there.
All right.
I'm thinking about summer break, that first sunny June day we have. Get yourself a big 11 by 17 piece of white construction paper and go get yourself a 32 crayon box of Crayolas and lay them out.
I love this experiment.
From dark to light, and watch the dark ones melt to oblivion and the other ones stay intact, and it'll actually run down the paper. It's super cool. Really cool. Really cool. But that just kind of ties it all into a bow, I think. And the kids will have fun. Get them out of the electronics. They got their heads in electronics for like 18 hours a day right now. Get them outside. Get them a little bit of sunlight. That's healthy for the body, right? And get out there and melt some crayons this year.
Yeah.
They'll
You can go a step
solidify.
further. I've made a solar oven where you can like cook hot dogs with the sun.
Ooh, I've not
I've
done
baked
that.
cookies with the sun's energy before. I did that live on air once. It worked actually surprisingly well.
I've never done a solar oven. That'd be sweet.
Oh,
though.
they're fun. They're fun. Yeah.
Well, I hope we've spurred some creativity for everybody, because now we're clearly, if you haven't figured it out, we're clearly ready for spring to stick
Yeah.
and hold
Happy
here.
February, everyone.
Happy February. It's our last episode of February. We've got a great episode coming to you here in March, though. We're going to just continue on this series. We've had a blast doing it. This is our 9th month together doing this, so appreciate all of everybody's support. You can always email us your questions at any time. weatheredquestions@gmail.com is the place to join in on the conversation. And we want to know anything that might be on your radar, even if it's not necessarily totally weather related. Maybe it's what's the coolest weather job out there, or has weather ever played a role in a traffic accident or a crime scene? Something along those lines. Anything that's on your radar, we can answer that stuff for you. So until next time, stay safe out there. We'll see you.